Winter is the perfect time to plan and dream about your garden for the upcoming growing season. As the garden rests, you can explore creative layouts, unique structures, and stunning focal points to make your outdoor space even more enchanting.
Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden. And before we dive in, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your favorite gardening friend. Okay, so this is the second time I'm recording this video. Forgot to even turn the microphone on, let alone put it on. And I recorded the whole video in silence. I've done this before. It's just incredibly frustrating. But here we go. I actually feel very prepared for this video now. So winter is one of my favorite times to basically start dreaming about gardening for this upcoming season. It's a really great time to explore different ideas, thoughts, plants, designs in order to better prepare yourself for the upcoming gardening season. And this is the time of the year where I love to grab a gardening book, curl up in my chair with my puppy dog, and leaf through the book with ideas and thoughts. I like to save on my Pinterest board. I like to screenshot different things that I see on social media. And of course, I love to work in my garden journal, just gathering these ideas and inspirations so that I'm better prepared for the year. And with that in mind, I want to give you 5 kind of tips or areas to focus on as you're continuing to draw your own garden inspiration. Okay, the first one is creating a thematic garden layout. And when I say thematic, it can really run the whole gambit of things. Lots of different options. You could be a cottage garden, which is what I love. Lots of cutting flowers, overwhelming, overflowing borders, lots of color, riot of textures. Love that. Or you could be something like a Mediterranean retreat, simple, minimalist plants with evergreens and grasses and maybe a beautiful focal point that's like a water feature. Or even something like an edible paradise. Since COVID, there's been a huge focus on planting and growing your own food in your backyard. So you can really have this beautiful space that kind of interweaves veggies and herbs and flowers. And it's really this combination of beauty and utility in the same space. Now you can do crazy stuff and have like a crazy weird theme. Like you could be like, I want a Star Wars garden. I don't actually know what a Star Wars garden would look like. I always have a vision of doing something like we were watching Lord of the Rings the other day, and I would love like a Hobbit garden. I'd be all about that feel and styling. I think that would be super cool. I like a lot of whimsy in my garden. I want it to have a secret garden kind of feel eventually. Still feels very wide open, but eventually I'd like to draw everything in the backyard and make it very secret. And while you're kind of working on this kind of thematic direction for your garden, you really want to focus on the layouts. You want to focus on where the pathways are going to go, where you're going to have planting beds or seating areas, and to visualize different focal points in the garden. It's okay if those change over time, but starting with a general layout and a general idea is extremely helpful. And when you're going to drawing these out, there's tons of apps you can use. You can do digital drawing, whatever works best for you. I tend to be someone who just picks up a pencil and sketches, so you can do that as well. Just kind of whatever is going to work best for your brain. You'll hear me say that a lot. Whatever works best for your brain, because all of our brains are very different. Okay, number 2 on my list for winter garden inspiration is to incorporate structures for height and interest. And that has been a massive focal point for me the last couple of years as I built the entrance for the shade garden. I built a DIY trellis. I've also added trees. I've done a lot of things to add height to my garden. And structures can add both functionality and beauty. I created a structure this year that was just a really good central point that you have to walk through to access my garden, but it also supported all the loofah and birdhouse gourds that I grew this year. So it was functional and beautiful. So some different types of structures. You can do arbors and pergolas. These are great for framing an entrance, for a seating area with climbing roses, I think is really, really nice. You can do trellises or obelisks, which tend to be a little bit smaller in stature. Those are great for growing things like clematis or sweet peas or beans or whatever. Those are also really nice because you can move them around the space if they're not too large. I also like raised beds for structure, which doesn't sound like that would be a structure thing because they tend to be a little bit lower. But having raised beds really defines a space, and that creates structure within the garden. They're ideal for veggies or a cutting garden. They offer accessibility if you want a taller raised bed because you can't bend over as far. I put in some taller raised beds this last year and I flipping love them. I don't think I'll ever go back to the 12-inch beds. I think I'm always going to do taller ones moving forward. They also offer a certain amount of neatness to the garden because everything's kind of controlled or corralled into one location. Now opt for materials like metal, wood, reclaimed items, whatever suits your style. Don't feel like you have to do all one type of material. You can definitely mix things up just depending on what it is that you're looking for. Also, don't feel like you have to buy brand new everything. Definitely shop Facebook Marketplace, look for roadside finds, thrift, do different things that you might be able to utilize as beautiful structure in your garden that didn't cost a pretty penny. Okay, number 3 on my list is adding eye-catching focal points. And I think when I first started working on specifically my backyard garden, I didn't really have a lot of focal points in mind with the exception of one. And that one focal point is the willow tree. And that's literally the first thing I planted in my garden. I've always loved willow trees. This is the 3rd one that I've had. I've lived at different properties. And I knew that that area was perfect for it because of all the drainage issues we have. It was just going to soak up all the water. It's going to be great. And having the willow tree as a focal point in the garden is a massive focal point, and it makes sense that I planted it so early on. But your focal point doesn't always have to be a plant. Every garden benefits from a focal point. It gives you a place to rest your eye. It gives you a direction or destination within a garden. You don't have to have just one focal point. You can have multiple, so keep that in mind as well. Now, I think you can add things like artistic features. That would be like sculptures or sundials or vintage bird baths. And those are kind of bit lower, smaller focal points. And those are actually focal points that can be hidden just around a curve or a bend or whatever in your garden. And it can be one of those focal points that you discover. Now you can also have larger focal points such as a water feature, some kind of bubbling fountain or tall picturesque or maybe a small koi pond or whatever works best for you. Those are a really great example of a visual focal point, but also an auditory focal point, because when you hear water in a garden, if you're unfamiliar with the garden, but truthfully, even if it is your own garden, you instantaneously want to find the source of the water. You want to follow that sound. So it really creates an auditory focal point within your space. Statement plants, just like what I was talking about with the willow tree, statement plants are excellent as focal points. Something that's very striking, like a striking tree, a unique exotic potted plant, maybe some beautiful urns with a tropical focal point. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. You can have smaller focal points within a gathering of something. So I've been working on some container gardening, some gathering of containers in a couple of different locations in my backyard. And I want to create one focal point in each of those gatherings. The one that I had been recently working on has a contorted filbert tree, which is a very interesting, unique, kind of spindly, curvy tree. And I recently had that guy put in there, and it's a great miniature focal point within my space. And winter is a great time to start scouting different species or unique plants for your garden. I highly suggest that you make sure you research the zones and make sure that it's appropriate for your environment, location, and space. But it's a really great time to really research and gain a little bit of knowledge instead of just going right out to a nursery purchasing something in the spring. Okay, number 4 on my list is to design for all seasons. And I feel like winter is the best time to figure that out. It's a really good time to look back at the spring, summer, and fall, figure out where you had lags in color and interest, what things didn't do as well as you thought at those particular times. Was there a plant that just took over everything else and all the other stuff was just, a sideshow? I mean, it's a really great time to reevaluate it. It's also a great time to reevaluate winter. When everything starts dying back and you look out at your garden and is everything just dead looking, or do we have some winter interest and texture? And we really do want to create gardens that have interest and have things that shine throughout each season. And I do think that that is a long drawn out process of you learning about your garden. Most gardens aren't a quick, put together thing. Most of us are gardening for a decade at least before we're starting to get any kind of place with our gardens. And during the winter, evergreens and conifers are really great for providing structure and greenery and interest and texture during the winter months. They look great during the rest of the year as well, but they do stand out a whole lot more during the winter. I have invested in some additional evergreens. I've got some dwarf Alberta spruces that I've got in my yard. I've got some Italian stone pines. I've got some boxwood. I've got several different evergreens that have been doing really well in my space. I would love to continue to build on that. But also remember that winter interest does not have to be plants and it does not have to be green. It can be branches. My willow tree is a beautiful winter interest, especially when we get freezing weather and the ice clings to the branches. Absolutely gorgeous. Any of those focal points we talked about earlier with like sculptures and bird baths and things like those become beautiful focal points during the winter as well. So it doesn't always have to be a plant. Now, if you want plants, and I'm focusing mainly on zone 8 right now, for winter blooming plants, you can do hellebore, snowdrops, witch hazel. All of those add really great color and interest for the winter. Decorative grasses work really great. So even if they've gone dormant and turned brown, you can still leave them up. They add a lot of texture and movement for the space, which is good. I do think when you're planning for all seasons, it's really important to make sure you layer your plants. You want to layer them with height, some taller at the back, some shorter at the front. You want to layer with color. Maybe something that blooms in May, but then you want something to back it up that blooms in June. So we want to layer the color as well. And then we also want to make sure that we're layering bloom times, which that's just what I said. Layering the color means changing up the color in different spaces. So mainly in the spring, maybe I have mostly pinks and purples. And as we shift to the summer, I have a lot of reds, oranges, and yellows. Now layering bloom time. Layering bloom time means you have different plants that bloom at different points in time. You don't want all your plants to bloom in the spring and you're just one and done and that's it. Or maybe you do. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want for your garden. I like to have things that bloom at different times. I have a massive gap in July, August, and September where I don't have as much blooming because it's so stinking hot outside. So that is an area that I really need to explore and see where I can add plants that would add interest and color at that point in time. And this is a great time to really look back and see if there were any gaps in your blooming seasons. Okay, and number 5 on my list is something I've been working on and wanting to do for so long, lighting. Adding lighting to your garden. Light up your garden. I've actually been collecting lighting for almost 2 years now, and I just literally haven't gotten my backside out there to install it. But it all kind of started with getting some things for a Mother's Day gift, which was really, really fun. And I think in the winter, the days get very short, so you feel like you can't be outside in your garden as often. And by including some lighting out there, it really extends your day. And that also works during the summer. And even though we have light longer in the summer, a lot of those temperatures, those hot temps, don't break until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And it's great to have some lighting outside so you can actually go outside when it's not blazing hot and do a little gardening in the evening. Now, thoughtful garden lighting adds ambiance and it highlights different points in your design. Pathway lights are really important. They guide you to different locations in the garden. They're a safety thing, especially if you have guests within your garden, so it kind of gives them direction. I've been looking at those pathway lights that are magnetic, and they'll stick to the sides of my beds, my raised beds. I'd love to do that. They're also solar powered. I think that that would be super interesting. Uplighting for trees. I would love to uplight the willow tree. It looks beautiful in the depth of the summer when it's just fully lush with green leaves and all the branches are just dripping almost to the ground. It's absolutely gorgeous at that time of year, but it's equally stunning in the winter, especially if we've gotten like an ice storm or something and all of the branches are just clinging with ice droplets. It's absolutely beautiful. And lighting those up during the evenings, I think would be pretty spectacular. And just something that would create a lot of whimsical, ethereal look to my garden. Now, I wouldn't try to uplight every single tree. I think if you tried to do every single tree, it'd just be too much. I would just do the ones that really spoke to you or that added a lot of texture. I would probably, the only other ones I would do, I would maybe do my red oak out front just because it's the only tree on the front garden. And then potentially I would probably uplight my weeping red buds because they have really interesting structure and color. I think that those would be really cool too. String lighting, and that's actually where it all started for me. I received string lights as a Mother's Day present. They're solar powered. Perfect for outdoors, and I've just never gotten them up. I need to. It's because I had thoughts like I have to do this first and then I can get the light up. I think that's mom brain. I don't know. So, and I keep adding things that I need to do before I just need to go in and get them up. I think it'll be really great. But having those out there, I think really creates kind of like a whimsical party warmth to your garden. And I think that's really fun because all of a sudden that garden becomes an extension of your home. It feels like an outdoor room. So I think string lighting is really fun and interesting and a very easy way to add lighting to your garden. Now, when I also say string lighting, I also mean fairy lights. I love fairy lights in my garden and I have them wrapped around some trellis, and I would like to incorporate them in other areas. They're not really about providing light so you can see well. They're more about providing like this interest to them, right? This like, oh, what's that twinkling in the background? That's really what the fairy lights are about. And so utilizing them in different little area tucked in spots, places in the garden, I think goes back to my theme of like a secret garden feel. Don't be afraid to put lights in all of your shrubs and hedges. I mean, you can totally do that too. I think that's a really fun way to really just light up. I am an 80s and 90s kid, and one of my favorite movies was She's All That. And I love the end scene where her dad flips on all the lights and there's like twinkly lights all through their backyard. Love it. Okay, so those are my 5 main things to consider when you're kind of working for winter inspiration, when you're working towards that garden design during the winter. I did want to touch on a few books that I'm loving right now. I always like Gardenista. This is by Michelle Slatala. Just a lot of different garden design. It's not always like my style, but I still find it interesting. I think it's important to explore a wide varieties of style because you never know what's going to inspire you. The pictures are big and beautiful and fill the pages. I need my books to be very visual and very colorful. Okay, next on my list is Container Gardening Through the Year by Malcolm Hillier. And this is all different types of containers. So it gives you recipes, ideas, thoughts, some for spring, summer, autumn, fall, winter, the whole thing, which is really, really fun. Lots of different styles. This is a really fun book as well. A little bit smaller scale, so it's easier to like take places with you, which I really appreciate. I'm totally the person, like I'll grab a gardening book and my gardening journal. I'll go sit down at a restaurant for an hour and do some planning, and it always works out really good. This one is a really fun one too. It's Projects for Small Gardens, 56 projects with step-by-step instructions by Richard Bird and George Carter. A lot of great photography, but it has a lot of DIY projects, including raised beds, containers, utilizing things like foraging within your garden, just lots of different ideas and thoughts, brickwork, all kinds of stuff. And they're kind of smaller, simpler projects, which I really, really appreciate. This is a fun one to look through. It has some garden design too. But yeah, this is a neat one. And I love books. I mean, I love getting stuff online too, but there's something about a book that I absolutely love. I rarely buy my books brand new. Typically, if there's a brand new book I want, I put it on my wish list and hope that someone will gift it to me for my birthday or the holidays or something. Most of my books I buy at half price books. I love shopping at half price books. I love getting them discounted, and I love the idea that I'm not like contributing to the loss of more paper. But half price books is really fun, and it's very cost effective as well. And I don't have like a bazillion gardening books. I don't feel comfortable having tons and tons. And if it's a book that I don't like find interesting for myself, I'm very likely will give it away very quickly. And so this is literally, I think I have like 20. This is literally what I have, and I tend to stick right in the 20 range. Once I get a new one, I will pick out something out here that I have not reached for in a very long time and gift that to somebody else so that I can constantly keep the ideas interesting, fresh, and new. And it's the perfect time of year to curl up with a gardening book. Absolutely perfect. Now, if you're not into books, you can do Pinterest, and I do have a Pinterest. I never promote that I have it, but there's a ShesAMadGardener Pinterest where I keep lots of my ideas and thoughts. I think it's a great way to organize your thoughts and different things that you might see. I like to screenshot from social media. I think it's really fun. And of course, I love to work in my garden journal. I do a lot of writing in here, a lot of exploring new techniques, starting seeds, new plants and such. I want to start taking pictures and putting the pictures in here. Haven't gotten to that point. I would have to invest in a little printer and all the things, and I'm just not there. But having a gardening journal is a really great way to write down and keep watch over your inspiration. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it gets you dreaming. I hope it gets you excited about the spring and about the possibilities. And I loved doing this video. I was very excited, even though this is the second time I'm recording it. It was actually more fun the second time because a lot of my thoughts were all better gathered together. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave comments below. Let us know what themes of your gardening you're interested in. Let us know what inspiration or what thoughts and processes you have for your gardening coming up this spring. As always, make sure you like and comment on the video. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow the channel so much. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, just drop me an emoji below, letting me know that you made it to the end of the video and that you say hi. And be sure to check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If TikTok gets banned, you'll find me on YouTube Shorts. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.